Everyone tells you to build in public to grow fast, but no one tells you how draining it can be to turn your life into a content machine. In this episode, I break down how to stay visible without becoming a brand robot, and why protecting your peace is the most underrated growth strategy of all. Hi, I'm Joanna. I'm a host of Founder Unfiltered. I'm also a consulting product manager that helps startups build user-centric products and self-sustaining startups. I am also a founder of Heart Renew, a self-dating app that lets you connect with yourself, not other people. Today, we're diving into a topic that becomes increasingly popular in the startup world, building in public. But here's the thing, while everyone talks about the benefits of transparency and community building, very few people discuss the dark side of sharing your journey online. The burnout, the performance pressure, the constant need to have something interesting to say. I want to share how I've learned to build my self-dating app in public without losing my mind, chasing clout, or becoming a content machine. Because trust me, I've made every mistake possible in this space, and I've learned that building in public can either be a powerful tool for authentic connection or a fast track to burnout and soul selling. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore how to share your startup journey in a way that serves both you and your community without sacrificing your sanity in the process. Let's start with the promise. On paper, building in public sounds absolutely magical. You get authenticity and genuine connection with your audience. You build a community around your mission before even have a product. You gain early traction through engaged followers who become your first customers. And you unlock what marketers call founder brand, where people follow your journey because they're invested in you personally, not just your company. Buffer, one of the pioneers of building in public, has famously shared everything from their revenue dashboard to their employee salaries. This transparency helped them build massive trust with customers and achieve over 20 million in annual recurring revenue. Ghost, the blogging platform, live streamed their entire funding process and user acquisition strategy, building a community of over 100 followers before launch. But here's what the success stories don't tell you. Behind the scenes, building in public can get messy real fast. According to a study by Hootsuite, 74% of creators report feeling burned out from content creation pressure. Meanwhile, research from the University of Pennsylvania shows that social media comparison significantly increases anxiety and depression, especially among entrepreneurs who are already dealing with high stress levels. At some point, you start second guessing every update. You feel pressure to always have to win, to share. You begin performing your life instead of just living it. And if you're not careful, you go from sharing your authentic journey to curating a highlight reel that bears little resemblance to reality. I've been there. I've burned out from the performance pressure, and now I'm doing it completely different. Let me be brutally honest about what building in public looked like for me initially and why it nearly broke me. Oversharing in real time. I used to post my process before I had emotionally processed it myself. Someone would give me critical feedback, and I immediately post about learning through tough conversations. A feature would break, and I'd instantly share about embracing failure. I thought this real-time sharing was authentic, but it's actually reactive. Dr. Susan David's research on emotional agility shows that we need time to process experiences before we can extract meaningful insights from them. When we share too quickly, we're often sharing from a dysregulated state which doesn't serve us or our audience. Posting just to post. I fell into the content hamster wheel, posting daily because I thought consistency meant frequency. I was chasing algorithm validation instead of providing genuine value. Gary Vaynerchuk's advice about documenting, not creating, was well-intentioned, but I misinterpreted it as share everything always. Research from Cal Newport's digital minimalism study shows that constant content creation actually reduces deep work capacity and creative thinking. When you're always thinking about what to share next, you're not fully present for the experiences themselves. Comparison and competition. I started comparing my updates to other founders who were 10 steps ahead of me. They were sharing $1 million revenue milestone while I was celebrating my first 6 users. This comparison trap is what social psychologist Leon Festinger called social comparison theory, our tendency to evaluate ourselves relative to others, which often leads to decreased self-worth and motivation. Engagement as self-worth. Perhaps most dangerously, I began letting engagement metrics dictate my self-worth. A post with low likes felt like personal rejection. High engagement meant I was winning. This is what researcher Dr. Anna Lempke calls dopamine addiction, when we become dependent on external validation for our sense of self. Burning out on consistency. I thought being consistent meant posting every single day, no matter what. But this led to what productivity researcher Oliver Berkman calls productivity performance, where maintaining systems becomes more important than the outcome they're supposed to create. The result, it all looked like connection on the outside, but inside it was absolutely exhausting. I was performing my entrepreneurial journey instead of living it. Before I share my new approach, I want to dive into why building in public can be so psychologically challenging. When we share vulnerable content online, our brains treat it like social exposure to a large group, which triggers ancient survival mechanism. Dr. Matthew Lieberman's research at UCLA shows that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. When a post doesn't get engagement, our nervous system literally interprets it as social threat. It means that we are rejected. People don't like us. Meanwhile, when we do get positive engagement, our brains release dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in addiction. Dr. Anna Lempke research on dopamine addiction shows that when we repeatedly seek external validation, we actually reduce our baseline dopamine levels, making us more dependent on external stimulation to feel normal. This creates what psychologists call an intermediate reinforcement schedule, the most addictive type of reward system. Sometimes your content performs well, sometimes it doesn't. And this unpredictability keeps you checking compulsively for engagement. And in the pressure of representing your startup professionally while sharing personally vulnerable content, you have to and you have a perfect recipe for anxiety and burnout. After experiencing this burnout firsthand, I completely rebuilt my approach to building in public. I now treat it like a creative ritual, not a content calendar. Here's my framework. Share weekly, not daily. Rhythm over hype. I post 5 times per week maximum. That's it. Usually one build log sharing what we did, learned, pivoted, what felt, and one deeper reflection on a founder insight or emotional lesson. I'm also sharing about my self-love journey, my product building journey, something from my podcast, and that's it. This approach is supported by research from the University of Rochester on intrinsic motivation. When content creation becomes driven by external schedules rather than internal inspiration, it reduces both quality and personal satisfaction. By posting less frequently, I can ensure each post comes from a place of genuine insight rather than obligation. I use voice notes or Notion to capture ideas as they came through this week, then edit them down once a week. This separation between capture and sharing gives me time to process experiences and extract meaningful insights. Build an internal do not share yet list. Just because something is happening doesn't mean it's ready to be shared. I keep a private list of things I'm working through internally, ideas that need to marinate, lessons still unfolding, wounds still healing. This practice is inspired by Julia Cameron's work in The Artist's Way on protecting nascent creative ideas and Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability. Brown emphasizes that sharing vulnerable experiences requires what she calls shame resilience, the ability to hold space for potential negative reactions. Once experiences have settled emotionally, Then I decide if I want to share, not because I should, but because it might genuinely help someone. This filtering process protects both my energy and my audience from half-processed thoughts that aren't ready for public consumption. Check in with your nervous system first. Before I hit publish, I do a quick nervous system check-in. I ask myself, is this post coming from a regulated place or a reactive one? Am I posting from genuine connection or for validation? Can I emotionally handle the range of responses this might generate? This practice is based on polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. When our nervous system is dysregulated, either hyperactivated or shut down, we make poor decisions about what to share and how to share it. Taking a moment to assess my internal state helps ensure I'm sharing from wisdom rather than wound. If the answer to any of these questions feels shaky, I wait. Building in public shouldn't cost you peace. Focus on story over starts. The posts that resonate most deeply aren't the ones with perfect metrics or impressive revenue numbers. They're the stories, the pivots that hurt, the breakdowns before breakthroughs, the I almost quit moments that feel too real to share but too important not to. This approach aligns with research from Stanford's Graduate School of Business on narrative psychology. Professor Chip Heath's studies show that stories are up to 22 times more memorable than facts alone. But more importantly, for building in public, stories create emotional connection and normalize the struggle that every founder experiences. When I stopped trying to impress and started telling the truth, I found my people. The entrepreneurs who related to my struggles became my most engaged community members and often my most valuable connections. Treat boundaries as business strategy. This might be the most important principle. Emotional boundaries are business strategy. Here's what this looks like practically. I don't reply to every comment. Engagement doesn't require my constant attention. I don't build features just because they would make good content. Product decisions are based on user needs, not content potential. I don't explain myself in DMs to people who misunderstand my post. My energy is finite and valuable. I don't chase influencer collaborations or cloud chasing opportunities that don't align with my values. This boundary setting is supported by research from Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend on psychological boundaries. They found that people with clear boundaries are actually more generous and effective because they protect their energy for what matters most. The more I protect my energy, the more I can actually create. And creation, not content performance, is the real point. Let me share the specific tools and systems I use to keep building in public light, lean, and not overwhelming. Notion serves as my running document of what I'm learning. I capture insights, observations, and reflections throughout the week without the pressure to immediately turn that into content. Auto AI and voice memos help me capture stream of consciousness ideas when I'm walking, driving, and in moments of inspiration. Research from Dr. Miali creativity shows that insights often come during relaxed, non-focused states, but if we don't capture them quickly, we lose them. A Figma helps me create clean visual updates without spending hours on design. Simple visuals often communicate more effectively than lengthy text posts. Beehive and Substack provide lower pressure channels for deep content. Email newsletters feel more intimate and less performative than social media posts, allowing for more nuanced sharing. Instagram and LinkedIn are my primary public sharing platforms, but I engage mindfully rather than addictively. I set specific times for checking these platforms rather than leaving them open all day. The key is having systems that support reflection and curation rather than reactive sharing. One of the most important distinctions I've learned is the difference between building community and building audience. Most advice about building in public focuses on audience growth, follower counts, reach, impressions. But what I've discovered is that community is far more valuable than audience for both business outcomes and personal fulfillment. Audience is one way. You broadcast to people who consume your content. The relationship is extractive. You provide entertainment or information, they provide attention and engagement. Community is bidirectional. You share insight and experiences, others share theirs back. The relationship is generative. Everyone contributes to a shared understanding or mission. Dr. Robert Putnam's research on social capital shows that communities create what he calls bonding and bridging social capital, relationships that provide both emotional support and practical opportunities. Audiences, by contrast, create what researchers call parasocial relationships. One-sided connections can actually increase loneliness and isolation. For startup founders, community is infinitely more valuable than audience. Community members become early customers, provide product feedback, make strategic introductions, and offer emotional support during difficult times. Audience members consume content but rarely contribute meaningful value back. Building community requires different strategies than building audience. It means asking questions rather than just making statements. It means highlighting others' insights rather than just sharing your own. It means creating spaces for connection between community members, not just between you and individuals. Here's the big realization that changed everything for me. When you build in public from a grounded, honest place, the brand building, traction, and community development happens naturally. Not because you're performing, but because people can feel the authenticity. Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability shows that authentic sharing creates what she calls empathetic connection, the foundation of trust and long-term relationships. When people follow your journey, not just for the wins, but for the way you handle losses, pivots, and uncertainty, they're investing to you as a human being, not just a business opportunity. This creates what marketing researchers call affinity-based loyalty, connection based on shared values and experiences rather than just product features or pricing. Companies with high affinity-based loyalty have lower customer acquisition costs, higher retention rates, and more word-of-mouth referrals. But the business benefits are almost secondary to the personal benefits. When you share authentically, you attract people who resonate with your actual journey, not a curated version of it. This means the connections and opportunities that come from building in public are more likely to be genuinely aligned with who you are and what you're creating. Let me address some questions and concerns I hear frequently about this approach. Would posting less frequently hurt my reach and growth? Possibly, if your only metric is follower count and impression numbers. But if your goal is building genuine connections and business value, quality consistently beats quantity. Research from Sprout Social shows that accounts with higher engagement rates often have better business outcomes than accounts with higher follower counts but lower engagement. What if I don't have anything big to share? That ordinariness is actually the most relatable and valuable content. Here's what a quiet mess in certain week looked like. It's incredibly powerful because it normalizes the reality of building something meaningful. Not every week has dramatic breakthroughs and major milestones, and sharing the in-between moments creates deeper connection. Should I share personal struggles and failures? If they feel emotionally resolved and could genuinely help others, if they're still raw or you're sharing them primarily for sympathy or attention, wait. Dr. Brené Brown emphasizes that vulnerable sharing requires what she calls shame resilience, the ability to share difficult experiences from a place of strength rather than wound. How do I know if I'm sharing for the right reasons? Check in with your nervous system and motivations before posting. Are you sharing to serve others, process an experience that reached resolution, or contribute to meaningful conversation? Or are you sharing to get validation, compete with other founders, or maintain an image? The internal experience of authentic versus performative sharing feels completely different. I believe we're moving toward a more mature, simple approach to building in public. The early days of the movement were characterized by share everything mentality and led many founders to burnout and performative behavior. The next evolution focuses on intentional transparency, sharing what serves both the founders and the community, creating genuine value rather than just content volume, and prioritizing long-term relationship building over short-term engagement metrics. This shift aligns with broader cultural movements toward authenticity, mental health awareness, and sustainable business practices. Consumers and community members are becoming more discerning about the content they engage with and founders they choose to follow. Companies like ConvertKit, Ghost, and Buffer are evolving their building in public strategies to focus more on educational value and community building rather than just transparent metrics. They're sharing frameworks, insight, and lessons learned rather than just revenue dashboards and growth charts. I predict that the founders who thrive in the next phase will be those who can balance transparency with boundaries, vulnerability with wisdom, and community building with business building. If you're convinced to try this more sustainable approach to building in public, here's how to implement it. Week 1 and 2. Audit your current approach. Track how sharing makes you feel, what motivates you each post, and what responses energize versus drain you. Week 3 and 4, implement the weekly rhythm. Choose one day per week to reflect on lessons learned and craft one thoughtful post. Use a voice memo or journal to capture ideas throughout the week. Week 5 and 6, practice the nervous system check-ins. Before posting, ask whether you're sharing from regulation or reactivity, connection or validation. Week 7 and 8, focus on story over starts. Share one experience or insight that focuses on the human element rather than just business metrics. Week 9 and 11, establish boundaries. Decide what you will and won't share, how you'll engage with responses, and what energetic limits you need to maintain. Give yourself at least 3 months to establish this new rhythm before evaluating its effectiveness. Sustainable changes in sharing behavior, like any habit change, take time to integrate. Building in public doesn't have to be a choice between authenticity and burnout, between sharing your journey and protecting your peace. You can do both. The key is remembering that your story is your strategy, not the curated highlight reel, but the real messy human journey of creating something meaningful. When you share from that place of groundedness and genuine service, everything else flows naturally. People don't follow founders because they're perfect. They follow them because they're real, because they handle challenges with grace, because they model a way of being that feels both ambitious and sustainable. So share your journey, but do it on your terms, at your pace, in service of both your mission and your well-being. The world needs more founders who can build something meaningful without breaking themselves in the process. Until then, remember, your authentic journey is more interesting than your polished performance. Share from truth, not strategy, and watch how different and better everything becomes. This is Founder Unfiltered. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.